Hello, friends and adventurers. I'm Em, and today we're going to talk about other adventuring parties. Because there are other parties besides your own out there. Welcome, DMs, to the DM table. So, other adventuring parties. What are they useful for? Firstly, I guess there is the concept. Besides the adventuring party or, well, whatever have you, there are different campaigns. It's not always exactly the adventuring party. But besides your group of player characters, there are others in the world completing similar missions, doing similar things, fighting similar foes. Maybe they're actually inverted and they're enemies. Maybe not. Maybe your group is pretty unique, but who do they compare to? Who do they meet that catches their interest? Who are their rivals? Who are people who would replace them should they be indisposed? There are various uses for other adventuring parties. For one thing, they can be rivals. Sometimes you want a pretty high challenge, and yet you don't want to risk your party, and you want them to have good time, and you want them to be intrigued, and you want them to maybe even be taken down a notch and defeated, or at least you want to give them a proper challenge and see what happens when they really try and when the opposition is really tough. So, rivals that can race your party to an objective, that can fight around an objective, whether in social intrigue or non-lethally, or sometimes even lethally. But it is always an interesting situation when you essentially meet your match. It's not to be underestimated, it's a highly dramatic moment that can create all kinds of tension and interest and story and situations and challenge and many other things. But what next? We can have a bit more distanter relationship between your party of players and other adventurers. For example, the others, well, your characters can hear rumors about them. They can learn much about the world through comparing themselves with others they have heard about. It's incredibly immersive thing when they can sort of gather information on their own about how are they doing from known examples. How powerful are they? What have they learned? What do the others know at their level, at higher level, at lower level? Even if level is completely abstracted, but what would you say is the success of this group? What will it be tomorrow? What will it be the next year? What was it yesterday? All that stuff can be compared, and even unexpectedly. Sometimes when they don't seek it, they can hear a rumor somewhere, in a tavern, in an inn, on the street, on a quest. They can hear about something that suddenly brings some sort of truth about their existence into focus through a lens of another group, another person, another similar entity that has been doing something relevant to them, and they get to hear this as news, as part of a story, as an experience, as a marking point of their journey, something new to pursue, as, well, anything really. Think just all the examples that you have seen in fiction everywhere. All those and more can be applied to the situation. Then there's working together. After all, if not heavy-handedly applied, working together can be interesting when they sort of seek out who to work with on their own, or get joined together for a quest that the quest giver has given out, and then they work as a larger team that all has its jobs, so there's no spotlight struggle, no overshadowing, nothing of the sort, as long as all roles have been thought out carefully ahead of time, or there is different paths to be taken, or the group effort has been something that can give sufficient challenge for everyone, then you don't need to worry about that. And then there's all that interchange and interaction and socializing that can be done. And in case you don't know, I usually suggest having smaller groups of players, 2 or 3 instead of the traditional 4 or more, because you can fill out the group easily with characters from the world, and this works out rather well because you can customize them towards your players and they can pick them out and you don't need to force them, and this is all really part of lots of DM advice that I have to give. But in this instance, this is a good instance to see that your players can pick and choose who they associate with, who do they recruit, who do they bring along, who do they test and feel is right for them, because they can try some people and they might not like too much to work with them. There may be some mismatching, but eventually in these situations, eventually they'll find somebody that they like, and as long as you all the time are fine with working hard to have interesting characters, and yet are fine with them leaving when not needed and being present when needed, then you'll find your players eventually pick out a person. Even if you essentially subtly fired 15 people at them until that point, at one point they'll pick a person and you'll be able to keep developing on that friendship, on that relationship, and do all that fun stuff games only wish they could do properly. However, don't get me wrong, some games really do a lot with this, but you can do more. So, provide characters, provide other adventures, provide other parties, provide interchange between them, provide interaction, provide fun, provide partying together, working together, friendship, having fun, doing stuff, and you'll see your players pick out what kind of friends they would like to have in this new world, which will make it a much more deeper world for them, because people don't go into another world to be alone, even if they brought along somebody. They do not want to be an eternal stranger, an eternal traveler, loner group. They do not wish to feel unique in a negative sense. They do not wish to be isolated. So, this helps with integration. This helps with your players feeling like they belong, like they're one of the many adventurers that are there in the world, in the campaign, in the situation, in the everyday life. They will feel gradually that they know who they are and who others are, and who are the people they meet, they talk to, they work with, and who are then they, because people frequently want to find their place, to find their interests, to find their accomplishments, to find their journey to the future. So, this will give your players opportunity to find these things as their characters through interacting and relying somewhat on other people here and there. Well, and if it doesn't work, well, you've tried and you've tried again and you have practiced and you have implemented stuff, and now you know what works and what doesn't, and who are the groups who like it, and maybe if you run into such, who are the groups who don't. You haven't just skipped out because you thought it might not be what the players want, and of course ask them ahead of the campaign perhaps, right? Ask them, do they want lots of others like them to be running around doing cool fun things and be interactable with? Many players would tell you that they would outright like that. After all, many role-playing games that are quite successful have good companions as the most central, most integral part of the gameplay experience. So bring your own. Now that we have all this, we have further things. Quest hooks, quests, all kinds of interests, because now that your players have people they know in the world, they will have what to do, what to get asked about, and what to ask in return, what to accomplish for people who ask them for help or assistance, or when something happens, and what to ask them as well to find out, to find their next objective, to work sometimes together on their own requests to find things of interest, to catch on to the things they were working on, to share and expand their work, to find information, to find outlets for their interests, because now they have all kinds of people to encounter all over the place that have a certain standing in relation to their own. So there are connections, there are many people they visit, many places where they meet them, many situations where they interact with them. There are now many sources of stories because people, or rather beings, they create stories. You know how stories come to being? They come to be because will powers are used. People, creatures, etc., beings want things. They desire things, and then process is born that goes towards the thing that they wish. World with only rocks won't tell a story. This is usually so where will of beings creates stories in the world by simply intertwining and creating the overall plot. So many new beings in the surroundings of your players that they take interest in are incredible sources of stories and plot, and even emotionally charged source, because they are something that the players might have already invested in. And as I said, you want them to invest, and then you don't want to overly blackmail them with it. You just want to provide progression, provide situations, provide opportunities, provide propositions that the world makes upon the characters. Whether they succeed or not, whether they lose something or someone or not, should ultimately depend on all of them, both your players and the surrounding characters and their wills and personalities and abilities. Back on the fun side of things, think of all the interesting, colorful help that your players can get from all kinds of sources this way, even when they don't ask. Even when this is something that will just bring out more life and cheer in their surroundings, or create counter situation to a serious situation that's either refreshing or just as serious or fun. Think of all the friendly exchanges that just happen afterwards, even if the players didn't previously engage by themselves, from just a bit of outmatching, teasing, exchanging of stories, ideas, talk, possibilities. Comparing, after all, works in various ways. What happens when you have funny events with other adventures that are not specifically directed at your players, but they are directed at them observing them? They can see some fun stuff, some jolly stuff, some romantic stuff, some touching stuff, some dramatic stuff. They can observe struggles of others, stories of others, strivings of others. They can see other things happening in the world that are just as compelling. They can make something out of it or just observe, but either way, there'll be something that keeps happening and surprising them with new, interesting things that indeed have more weight, because these are people just as strong, just as talented, just as interesting as them. These player-like characters are more striving, more focused, more akin to the player, him or herself. So the players take notice, the players take it to heart more. After all, there is infinite possibilities, even when this sort of happens away from the main scene, where it's only something that happens on the side, where there's no necessity for a quest or a campaign part, but it can be born from it. It's just something that depends on whether players afterwards interfere or not, whether they do it personally or decide to, as I said, watch and take some knowledge or feeling from it instead. However, even beyond the most grand of uses, there are further uses for other parties and other adventuring characters. For example, that's showcasing some mechanics and stuff. Treat it as a sort of subtle and advanced tutorial, for example, where your players might be witness to others performing some complicated tactics, moves, maneuvers, things, dealing with social situations, with laws, with abilities, with situations in the town, with anything that's complex in a manner where your players were just about to step into the realm of doing so themselves, and they needed a new frontier of an idea of how this functions. It's sort of like lore exposition, but instead of it being a exposition dump, you turn it into an event where things happen by example, and we do that show, don't tell type of thing, and then players see new things rather quickly, and then they are interested with seeing suddenly something so inspiring new happen. After all, you've just shown something that they might have not thought of in the first place. It's a completely new piece of the campaign, yet unexplored. The players get to be impressed. This is some new grounds, new inspiration, maybe something that they wouldn't have remembered otherwise. In any case, it should be something that both looks impressive, perhaps by either quality of the idea or complexity, yet almost mundane by, well, maybe not mundane, but sort of very logical and very within the world to have been performed, so that it feels like it is a natural event. It just sort of was something that was happening and was something that you wanted to show as part of the story. They should not even suspect that you're showcasing mechanics, or at least you should try that, and try it well, because if they do figure it out and start suspecting it or figure it out, as I said, then they will respect your effort. So yeah, that's how you do it. You integrate it in a really matter-of-fact sort of way, where players might even miss that this was a showcase of more of a mechanical nature than a story event, because that's the best way to do any kind of technical exposition, really. Well, one of the best ways, but yes. So there are numerous and numerous uses for other parties and other adventurers. See which ones you can discover more, because there is certainly more. Some examples being lore derived from previous exploits, history derived from previous events that previous parties have participated in, notable names in the world just being able to be connected with some events, so that there is more understanding being built about the world, as events that spark interest in people. Ability to compare which events will catch world's attention and which won't, which people and events are secret, which are not, what brings fame, success, glory, what brings responsibility, secrecy, new jobs, new frontiers, new abilities, and new dangers. Which are the dangers? Don't forget, there are negative and dangerous and deadly parties out there that are not on the same side as your players. So, what kind of deadly people are lurking about? Which ones has your party heard of? Are they gonna meet a legendary assassin in an alley? Are they gonna make it out of that situation? Are they gonna run when they have heard that name before? Are they not gonna? Is it gonna be a legendary encounter? Who's gonna win? Well, that's just one example amongst many examples So, tell me if you figure out some more uses of your own, and let us all see them in a campaign or a work of art, or both. And adventure, if you thought this was helpful or unique, maybe you can spare a click and I could see you here next week. Until then, I wish you luck on your adventures.